The European Commission rejected the Netherlands government's request to re-establish the visa regime with Albania, the spokesman of the European Commission stating that Albania continues to meet the conditions for obtaining visa liberalization. Opposition leader Luzin Basha has criticized internationals that supported the June 30th elections, and according to him, the position is in contradiction with the principles of the rule of law. The Central Election Commission officially participated in the June 30th elections, reporting that they have expressed the will of 22.97% of eligible voters. It is 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 3rd of July, 2019. Good evening and thank you for tuning in to RTV Ora's English edition. My name is Oliver, bringing you the only daily update of the local Albanian news translated into English. We begin tonight with the European Commission, which has rejected the Netherlands government's request to re-establish the visa regime with Albania. A spokesman for the Commission told RTV Ora that Albania continues to meet the conditions for obtaining visa liberalization. After a careful assessment of the content in the notification received from the Netherlands and based on the available information and the relevant data, the Commission considers that in the current situation, the circumstances to trigger the visa suspension mechanism are not met. The Commission will continue to closely monitor the fulfillment of the visa liberalization benchmarks for Albania as well as for other countries benefiting from visa-free travel, declared the EC. The Netherlands officially submitted the request to the European Commission on May 31st, as the country's parliament adopted a resolution calling for the suspension of the free movement of Albanian citizens in the Schengen area. The Netherlands' request was made to prevent the free movement of individuals suspected of criminal activity and drug trafficking. Earlier, the European Commission, during the presentation of Albania's progress report, assessed that the country continues to meet the conditions for the acquiring of the visa-free regime in the Schengen area. If the Commission would accept the Netherlands' request for the mechanism to be activated, visa liberalization for Albania would be suspended for a period of 9 months. A long debate took place in the Netherlands Parliament on this issue, and then the request initiated by MP Torenberg was subsequently approved. In a letter sent to the European Union Commissioner for Migration, Home Affairs and Citizenship, Dimitris Avramopoulos, and the Netherlands Permanent Representative to the European Union, Robert de Groot, presented his arguments for this request, summarized in 3 points. The European Commission had 1 month to review this request, and the deadline expired today. A spokesperson of the EC informed that the Commission considers that in the current situation, the circumstances to promote the free movement suspension mechanism are not met. The Commission will continue to closely monitor compliance with the visa liberalization standards for Albania and other countries benefiting from visa-free travel, the EC spokesperson said. This decision by the Netherlands brought heated debates to Tirana in the political sphere. Meanwhile, the majority stated that the initiative was taken by MPs who have already been against integration, while the opposition has seen it as a result of the low-level fight against crime, corruption, and drug trafficking. Only 2 weeks after the official submission of the Netherlands' request to the European Commission, the Netherlands Parliament approved of the official opening of the negotiations for Albania, announcing that they are opposed to the opening. If the Netherlands' request were to be adopted, then the suspension of the free movement would take place for a period of 9 months, and during this period, the Commission will establish an extended lenses. And next up tonight, the Socialist Party has not taken into consideration President Ilir Meta's proposal to solve the political crisis as the majority continues the procedures for the dismissal of the president, accusing him of a serious violation of the Constitution. After the meeting of the mayors, the leader of the Socialist Party group, Talon Bala, said that on Monday, at the special plenary session at 6 p.m., the establishment of the inquiry commission for the dismissal of Ilir Meta will be discussed and will be voted on. The majority needs the votes of this new opposition to dismiss the head of state, but apparently the chair of the Democratic group thinks that it is not the right time to launch the investigation when the Constitutional Court is missing. Sources within the Socialist group said the inquiry commission would consist of 9 members, 5 from the majority and 4 from the 2 opposition parliamentary groups. At the head of the investigations for the head of state will be the chair of the Commission of Laws, Ulsi Manja. But apart from the objective for Meta's dismissal, the Socialist Party will include in their analysis also the June 30th votes. According to the Socialist Party sources, it is learned that Prime Minister RTV Ora has asked delegates to conduct an analysis at the SB assemblies. At the end of July, it is expected that the Socialist Party will gather in the National Assembly in the capital. And moving on now to the Democratic Party chair, Luzin Basha has replied to all the internationals who have recognized the June 30th elections and has offered the Constitutional Court of Albania as a way of appeal. In a post on Facebook, Basha writes that on June 30th, it was not only an act of unconstitutional and anti-democratic action, but also a political and social action that directly damages the interests of Albanian citizens. Basha stated the June 30th vote, beyond an illegal farce, were manipulated by any means and any way, from legal manipulations and voter threats to manipulation of voting and counting. Anyone who quietly accepts or agrees consciously with this destruction of the Constitution and of the fundamental institution of democracy and of free elections does not serve neither democracy nor the interest of Albanians. The opposition does not recognize the June 30th vote and will not ever recognize it. This was decided by the Albanians themselves on June 30th by the vast majority of Albanians. Basha writes that the political crisis in Albania cannot be solved with impunity, making concessions, or forgiving past crimes. According to him, the only path to normal and democratic politics is that of the rule of law and the punishment of politicians who have stolen the elections and cooperated with criminals. Three days after the June 30th election, the Central Election Commission reported an increase in participation in the process. The spokesperson of the Central Election Commission, Drilona Hojai, said that 812,249 voters participated in the voting process, or about 22.97% of the total number of voters from 3,536,016 citizens with the right to vote. Compared to the local elections of 2015, it seems that on June 30th, 800,000 fewer Albanians casted their vote. The Central Election Commission announced that 45,276 invalid votes for mayor of municipalities were registered out of 38,545 that were registered in the elections 4 years ago. This means that on June 30th, there was an increase of 6,731 citizens who made invalid votes compared to 4 years ago. Invalid votes for municipal councilors do not change much, where on June 30th, 49,986 were registered from 49,766 in 2015. The CEC spokeswoman stressed that the final election results of June 30th will be announced after the closure of the appeal procedures under the CEAZs. The CEC reports that on the percentage of polling day attendance and afterwards have been criticized by the Democratic Party for providing incorrect data. The June 30th vote in the Kirben municipality will be appealed by the Electoral College, while it will also be investigated by the prosecution on suspicion of electoral crimes. According to the Central Election Commission, the Socialist Party candidate, Mailinda Tsara, was determined the winner with 6,623 votes in the race, with Edmond Piroli, who received just 996 votes. But according to the Democratic conviction candidate, the process was manipulated by doubling the number of real voters. He says that there is evidence that the commissions have voted on behalf of the people who are not in Albania with ID cards brought by their family members under pressure. For these charges, the prosecution has initiated a proceeding for falsifying electoral material, while the candidate says it will address the Electoral College for what it calls electoral massacres. Edmond Piroli called as an example of manipulation 2 voting centers set up in a private environment in Fushkuce. He claims that only 6 people were actually voting, while 60 ballot papers were manipulated in one center and 120 ballot papers in the other. These premises were attacked with weapons only a few hours after the closing of the voting process, where luckily there were no injuries. However, the perpetrators have yet to be found. And finally tonight, trade relations between Albania and Kosovo remain weak, even though in recent months it has grown by 40% due due to the tax that Kosovo has imposed on Serbian goods. The head of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry appealed to businesses to submit all complaints regarding the barriers that exist between the two countries by July 15th. These issues will then be sent to both governments, which will be left with a September deadline for finding a solution. Regarding the declarations by Kosovo's minister on increasing tariffs on Albanian businesses, the head of the Chamber of Commerce said that now is not the time for more pressure, but for more solutions. The number of Albanian enterprises exporting to Kosovo does not exceed the number of 800 commercial entities, referring to the data of the first 6 months of the 2019 year. This figure is considered to be extremely low compared to the potentials that entrepreneurships in Albania reportedly have. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you so much for watching our English edition this evening. And be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of RTV Ora, thank you and have a great night.